and you got a chance to meet him a couple of weeks ago here on News Radio WRVA. Said I wanted to get him on throughout the campaign to talk about the issues that he's hearing from Virginians as he travels our Commonwealth, and he's joining us right now on News Radio WRVA. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Morning, Rich. I'm great.
Well,
I'm great. Good to be with you.
It's great to be with you. I know you'd rather be taking care of something around the house or doing a project at Home Depot and doing your own home fix it. Folks, I did find one person that does mow his own lawn, and that's the general here. But you've been on the road talking to Virginians out there on the road, and when you're making these appearances and introducing yourself to folks, what's the feedback been? What's the big concern that you're hearing from people?
Well, number one, it's been great to get around the Commonwealth. People are not shy about telling us what their concerns are. And as you might imagine, I mean, in Northern Virginia, there's a lot of talk about data centers or the data centers and, basically the issues with them and how the local populations do not like them. They're very strongly against them. At least they're the ones that are the most vocal about the issue. And so I do understand it. And I've taken a strong stance against them. As long as the local populations don't want them. And so I believe that the local population should have a veto right. In other words, neither Washington or Richmond should shove the data centers down the throats of a local area unless they're okay with them. And because there are going to be places where we can put the data centers remotely, so they're not bothering people with noise, driving up the energy costs and what have you. And so the other issue in general is the affordability. Back when we had the COVID issues, and a lot of this is a legacy of what happened with COVID and closing everything down the supply chain, we ended up printing a lot of money. And I don't know if people recall how much money we printed. I think it was on the order of about 40% more money. That was going to be inevitably causing inflation, raising prices. So we do have an affordability issue now. And so one of my solutions is we need to ensure that COLA, the cost of living allowances that we change every year, is updated to keep pace with inflation. And, the traditional formula for COLA has not kept pace with inflation. It's lagged it, partly because they use an index based upon normal working age folks and not the elderly who are the ones that are on fixed income. So a new index would actually raise the COLA above what it is and keep closer with inflation. And of course, we have jobs. We want to make sure that people are getting jobs where they need them, especially in the southwestern part of the state, but all over. And one of the
is Virginia gets the highest per capita defense spending of any state in the nation, and I'm very strong on defense. I realize that Virginia has a critical mass of labor, concentration of capabilities, and all over the state, by the way, not just in the northern part and down in Hampton Roads. So I will be a strong advocate to make sure that Virginia continues to get our defense appropriations. And so that's kind of, in general, what I'm hearing as we travel the state. But I have to tell you, people are wonderful everywhere we go. They're very different. It's a very diverse state, and it's just a privilege to be able to get out and meet Virginians all over the Commonwealth.
For folks, that's called leadership. Bert Mizusawa joining us right now. He's a candidate running for U.S. Senate in a Herculean task against Mark Warner. He's got a bunch of money in the bank right now, ready to defend his seat. It's interesting, sir. When I moved here from Arizona, we drove cross country, and I stopped in every place just randomly along the way, and I asked them, what the biggest concern is, and a lot of them were, and this is a year and a half, 2 years ago, actually a year ago. It was people wanted to talk about how do we bring people together, and I think they're looking for leadership, and I think that's something that you have an overabundance of, more so than a lot of people in D.C. Did people ask you about what's going on in the Middle East?
Of course. Iran is front and center right now, and I will tell you that I was one of Donald Trump's national security advisors in the 2016 campaign. I got to know him. I wrote the Trump Doctrine for Foreign Policy. I had him read it right in front of me, and he told me he loved it. And the central thesis of the Trump Foreign Policy Doctrine is that every time we use U.S. taxpayer dollars, it needs to have a positive return on the taxpayer investment, whether it's spent domestically or overseas. And so I know where his head is on this. The main issues with Iran I'd ask people to pay attention to is, number one, everybody agrees, both sides of the aisle, that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. I'm afraid that if the Democrats get back in charge of Washington in 2028, there's a good chance of that. But let's be honest, even if it's only a 40% chance or 30% chance, it could be 8 years before we basically are willing to take a preemptive action to make sure that Iran doesn't have the bomb. And I will tell you, once they get it, Virginia is going to be higher on the target list, partly because of Northern Virginia, but also Hampton Roads has the highest concentration of operational military anywhere in the nation, maybe in the world. And so I think that was job number one, and I think we've taken care of it. I can't be 100% sure. I'm not privy to all the classified information like I was before. So we have to trust that the president has got the information that is needed to make this momentous decision, as well as what the results of that decision are. The more difficult issue that we're focused on right now is the Strait of Hormuz. Hormuz is basically the choke point for about 20% of the global oil supply. But I want to let people know that the United States only gets about 2% of its oil consumption through the Strait of Hormuz. And so I think the president is right. The Europeans and Asian friends and allies who rely on that source, or basically on oil coming through that choke point, should be involved more than they are. And I think we've seen that recently with Trump's decision to cut back on the exercises in Korea. So I think that job number one, it has basically been accomplished, but job number two is still in the works. And we all hope that this thing gets fixed pretty quickly. But, you know, any military operations is going to involve uncertainty. That's what makes them so difficult. And so I would just encourage people to stick with it. I think a little bit of pain now will be worth avoiding a lot of pain in the future. And so I would just stick with it and give it some time.
30 seconds here, because I do want to get to the campaign. How important is it to have a point of view within the United States Senate as someone like you who understands military operations and can look at the big picture, as opposed to someone who's just taking a snapshot and popping off left and right?
Well, spending on our defense budget is the highest part of the budget once you get past the mandatory spending and are the entitlements. And so I think it's very, very important to have somebody with a military background that the president will listen to. I can guarantee you, he's not going to be listening to Mark Warner. Right now, he's not listening to any Democrats. I have the military background. In fact, I'd be the highest ranking military officer in the U.S. Senate. I'd have the most combat time in the U.S. Senate. And so I think I'd have an outsized amount of influence talking to the president. He's listened to me before. I'm sure he'll listen to me again, especially when it comes to issues like Iran and any other national security issues around the world for that matter.
Okay, let's get to the campaign. Sir, I'm just going to be honest with you. It is a daunting task. Mark Warner is the incumbent. Mark Warner has all the support that he could possibly look for from the state, within the state, throughout the country. Money will come in droves. They're going to savage you on ads that I'm just afraid Amy's going to have to look at some of these because it's a dirty game. But right now, you're behind the eight ball. How is it going right now as far as the response that you've been getting and people reaching out going, you know what, I like what you have to say. I'm going to give you $5. I'm going to give you $20. I'm going to donate so you can have a chance to have a semi-fair fight in this game that's all about political dollars and donations right now.
Well, Rich, I've never shied away from a tough fight. I mean, I've spent 40 years in uniform, proving that. But right now, I will remind people the race is tied at 0-0. And the ultimate currency in politics is to be the number of votes that we get out. And we've been very, very encouraged by the support, the intent. I wish we could get kind of credit for all the intensity of support we've gotten. The one thing I've noticed is my opponent has not mentioned my name. He's avoiding mentioning my name because I think once people hear my name, they're going to look it up and they're going to like what they see. And I'm trying to find solutions that are just common sense solutions for the people of Virginia and for the nation, because my vote in the Senate will count for every American. And so I encourage people to check me out. My website is Bert for Senate, BERT for Senate.com. I think every dollar I raise will go 10 times farther than Mark Warner's dollars because he's already well known. I'm relatively unknown, But I'm very confident I would not have gotten this race if I didn't think that we had a decent chance of winning. And so we're going to continue to fight. And I think it's worth fighting for. Basic common sense solutions, taking care of our country, like ensuring the borders are not violated, and also that only Americans vote in our elections, as well as only counting U.S. citizens in our census that decides our representation in Washington. So I encourage people to take a little bit of time. I spent 41 years in uniform serving the nation. I just asked them to give me 41 minutes to look us up and to come out and vote on Election Day, November 3rd.
And I'll tell the voters, I mean, I think we've seen this. And again, I haven't been in the Commonwealth my entire life, but I have seen this watching from afar and now watching from being inside the Commonwealth, that it's that enthusiasm. That enthusiasm will spur people on. And we saw it with the money that poured into the state to support the anti-gerrymandering. And we'll see it if the general's out on the ground and he's getting support and people are getting enthusiastic, you will see the national support that this campaign is going to need coming in. But it all starts with the grassroots efforts here in Virginia, and we've seen it happen over and over and over again. So, sir, I want to see you out throughout the Commonwealth, and I'd love to have you back on and to get the feedback what people are telling you.
Well, thanks so much, Rich, and please give my best to Rigby. I'll give him a little bit more advice than I did the last time we were on.
Well, last time the general came on, my son Riggs was here, and he said, "Sir, what do you have advice-wise for a junior officer?" And that's how, after we found out the general does mow his own lawn, and he loves to do home fix-it and honeydew stuff that his beautiful wife, Amy, gives him. So he told my son, he goes, "Hey, best advice, listen to your dad." And I laughed and laughed and laughed, and he wanted me, I told him you were coming on, and he says, "Tell him I said hi, best of luck." And he's going over to the NROTC unit to pick up his new uniforms for the year, so he said to say hello to you.
I appreciate that. So I look forward to following his career.
Thank you so much, sir. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks again, Rich. You have a great day.
You too. Take care. BertForSenate.com. You want to find out more about the general. All right. Coming up on the program, Governor Scott Walker. Wow. What a 1-2 punch. The general joining us, and then Governor Scott Walker, who's the president of the Young Americans Foundation. If you've got a kid who's going to college, you're going to want to hear our conversation coming up here in just a few moments. Hey, quick reminder, today's program is brought to you in part by Men's Wellness Center. So